Welcome everyone. My name is Kyle Groves. I am an EIT and a technical specialist with ATG. And today we're going to be talking about the Corridor Productivity Pack from CTC Software. And the purpose of this is that it's going to give you custom subassemblies for your civil 3D corridors. Now, first off, let's go ahead and talk about what exactly is this Corridor Productivity Pack. Well, they're powerful, custom-built subassemblies that CTC put together inside the Autodesk add-on software Subassembly Composer that comes with Civil 3D. What CTC was trying to solve by creating these was to create realistic geometries and realistic parameters and give users the ability to control them in an intuitive and flexible way. The primary way that we're achieving this when using the CPP is that most of the codes in most of the subassemblies are directly editable right inside Civil 3D. So you can have one subassembly that you can place into a bunch of different assemblies, and you can go ahead and you can rename that link or rename that shape or rename that point to whatever it needs to be for that particular region of your corridor. There's also really robust targeting capability in all of this. So we can see here up in the top part of my screen, we've got this is all one subassembly, but we've got an inside boulevard, a sidewalk width, and an outside boulevard. Now, all of those are targetable in the main one, but we just wanted to make sure that we were able to retain all of that flexibility in all of those targets and even give a few additional targets in some different subassemblies that weren't available otherwise. If you know a thing or two about Subassembly Composer, you don't have to go back in and recreate all of these. One of the reasons why we wanted to make sure, other than being able to install these on your computer, but to make sure to provide the PKT files, is because we can edit those in SAC. And I'm actually going to be doing that for a little bit today to show us how we can get those codes to go through there. Last but not least, there's detailed help files for these subassemblies as well. So if you're not sure what it's doing, well, you can always go back and check the help. So now that we know what the CPP, or the Corridor Productivity Pack, is, let's talk about how we can use it. Using the CPP will allow you to understand modifying the parameters of your subassembly intuitively. And we can take an A/B comparison inside the software, but I'm looking at you, General Curb and Gutter, for this one. I don't know what parameter E is. I don't want to go check the help, and I don't want to guess and check. The subassemblies that we give you in this pack have those intuitive names and areas where you can go ahead and change that. And the big focus of today is all about codes. So why do we want to use the CPP? We want to make our code sets do the work for us. We want them to control our feature line creation and the display of those feature lines. We want to have better flexibility when we're doing QTO or generating a material list. We want to automatically label and hatch right in our cross sections or in our section editor. And if you're a firm that has your own survey team, or if you're a civil firm that uses the same survey firm pretty reliably, now you can get that jargon to jive in between those two firms. So if your survey team uses BOC for your top, back, of curb in your surveys, you can go ahead and use that exact same nomenclature in your design. So now whenever anyone's talking about a back of curb, they're always speaking the same language. And lastly, we can use the modification of the PKT file to get the rest of those codes put in there for us, so we don't have to do it every single time inside the software. So with that, enough talking about it. We're going to go through and show people how to use and get a hold of the CPP. So first things first, where do you get it? Well, you go to the CTC software website, where you can simply go over their products on the civil page, go find the Corridor Productivity Pack. As with everything on the CTC website, there's a nice little bullet point description and some screenshots or videos detailing how it is you're supposed to use these. But we can go ahead and run that download. It's going to prompt you for some information, and then you're going to go get that downloaded, unpack the zip file, and you'll be left with 3 tabs: the imperial, the metric, and the min.dot specific. Since I'm in the US, I'm going to be focusing mostly on just the imperial today. And you would go through then, open up Civil 3D. In just a moment, I actually have to clear these out. From my downloaded folder, because I was practicing with these a minute ago. And what you can do with this is you simply log into Civil 3D, you go to your tool palette, and however you manage your tool palettes, I'm using the CTC and the ATG method of a custom location for all of those different tool palettes. So I'm going to go navigate to that custom location. And you want to go ahead and create just a new palette. So if you're working on this from the out-of-the-box setup and you wanted to just go right into your Civil Imperial subassemblies, you can come through here and you can create a new palette and put them all in together. So with this new palette, I'll call this CPP Imperial. Get rid of that old one. And then when you right-click on one of these palette tabs, you'll be able to import the subassemblies. So you'll go out, you'll find that location that you're looking for, and you can go ahead and just open those right up. And it's going to bring all of those in, and it's going to balk at me for the link width and slope because technically it's still in my drawing, but we can continue on without that. And once you do, you're going to get these populating here right inside your drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a few of these in, and we'll take a look at these. The multi-layer lane is a really handy one. It does support super elevation as part of that. So I'm going to drop in the multi-layer lane. I'm going to go with the CTC general curb. All right, let me shut down some of these hidden palettes over here. And just go ahead and un-auto hide tool palette. CTC general curb, we'll do the sidewalk boulevard. And then one of these general links, I'll use the link slope to surface to daylight. So with these, we can already go ahead and see a couple of things that are different from the main. If I were to be looking at my multi-layer lane subassembly, I'll notice that I have my super elevation right off the bat up at the top. Have some of those. I can define my slope and my width, no big deal. But I also have a drop down that's going to toggle exactly how many pavement lifts that are going to display and that I can modify inside the properties palette. So again, this comes back to the whole user friendliness aspect. Be specific about what it is that you need. And with this flexibility, you can have the exact same subassembly in multiple places doing different things depending on the assembly and the region you're looking at. If we're going to take a look at the curb now, and I'll go ahead and drop in some OTB curb so that we can really take a look at this. OTB stands for out of the box. And that's down here on the bottom right. So one thing I noticed right away for this out of the box curb is that my sub base has a vertical link for the edge of that, whereas the CPP has this kind of diagonal link. Well, that goes back to when you're building a surface and what overhang correction you're going to be using. Well, when I go out here and build this in the field, not everything that I build is going to be able to maintain a perfectly vertical slope. And Civil 3D really hates to calculate multiple Z points at a single XY coordinate. So this is going to help make sure that you're always going to get your most accurate quantities and also your more realistic build conditions for being out in the field. With the CPP curb as well, we can flop, again, just like the out of the box, we can flop the insertion point from top back to flange. And then when I'm modifying all of these values here, I got my gutter slope, my gutter thickness, my curb height, all the rest of that stuff. Notice how I'm using, or how the CPP is using real words to describe that. If I were to go into the out of the box, I've got some basic gutter information and then dimension. Dimension A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What are all of these? I have no idea. I would either have to manually type around and iterate with that, or I'd have to go dig out the subassembly help, which is itself kind of buried. So the goal with these was to make things more intuitive and make things easier for users to manage, both from a subassembly properties perspective and for your drawing. Next up, for both this sidewalk and for this daylight link, I've actually got this green hatch coming in here, and that is because for these boulevard, we've actually added a thickness value to that. So when I'm out and I'm going off on my job site and I need to go strip out the existing conditions and bring back in some black dirt and spread some vegetation, I can quantify that right away inside my corridor because this subassembly has a shape defined, and I can simply just come in and define that code. So on all of these, what would otherwise be generic links through the out of the box, we've added in that shape parameter. Now, you can go ahead and just zero that out if you want a basic link, but again, you can set that to be whatever you have to be. If it's a foot, 3 inches, 6 inches, whatever, you can go ahead and define that when, and technically it's in feet. So that's the overall how this is going to work. If I go back to my palette, why did that? I've got some custom coding that's going into that ribbon in my tool palette, so I'm just going to shut down and re-import those real quick. Bear with me. And while we're waiting for that, let's actually go ahead and pop into Subassembly Composer as well. So all the CTC Express tools are current version of Autodesk, and then you can go back 4 years. So actually, to maintain all of that fidelity, these were being used in 2017 because it's good for 17, 18, 19, and 20. And in order to take these subassemblies and kind of modify them, what you need to do is you need to have go find out where these subassemblies live. And then you can simply open it up. And I'm not going to modify this and resave it. I'm going to save it as so that I can get a different one. And I don't want to modify that for myself today. I'll just call this Z custom curb. I will have to rename the subassembly if I'm going to do this kind of rename parameter here. So I'll call that Z custom curb. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the code that's being used for my top back of curb. I said before, hey, survey firm. Maybe we're shooting TBC, BOC, a million different codes for a million different firms. But if I want to isolate this P4, what I can do is in this preview quadrant of Subassembly Composer, if I click on a particular shape or link, or just any kind of point here inside Subassembly Composer, I'm going to get a highlight in this flowchart that's telling me where to go ahead and keep looking for that. So if I'm looking here for point 4 and link 9, it's going to continue to drill down for me where exactly I can find that stuff until it brings me to point 4 and link 9. And what I have here is a point code in double quotes. So when I come in here in the properties of a point or a link, and I put a code inside double quotes, that means it's hard-coded and the user can never access it. Well, if I know that my survey and my design teams are always going to be using the code TBC, then I can go ahead and put that in the double quotes and I'll be happy. And I can save this subassembly and life is going to be good. And since my subassembly name is different than the original one, I can also have both of these in my drawing at the exact same time. But another reason why we might be interested in using these codes and kind of customizing them a little bit is for some of this generic stuff. So link, width, and slope is the exact same as the basic one, except it's got that third dimension. It's got that thickness value to it. So if I open this and I want to save it as custom link, width, and slope, you know, I don't want to be using, let's see what our parameter here is, shapecode. I don't want my code to come in by default as topsoil. Because my firm doesn't use the code topsoil, we use the code sod. So when I have a parameter as a part of my subassembly, what happens is I can go into my shape codes, and if I use the shape code that matches my parameter, then this parameter is going to show up in my properties palette from model space, and I can go ahead and modify it that way. So I don't always want to use topsoil. Maybe I want to call this concrete. Maybe I want to call this gravel or geomembrane, whatever it is. I still want it to be able to modify it inside the software, inside Civil, but I want to go ahead and define that code right away. And that default is going to be the sod. Now, the one thing I do need to make sure is that I go into my packet settings and I rename this so that I can't have two subassemblies with the same name inside my drawing. Civil 3D does not like that. So now that I've saved this PKT, and I can see that it's showing up in my location where I'm going to be grabbing all those PKTs from, I can simply go back over to here. Import subassemblies and grab all of those. And I can see here that my custom curb and my custom link, width, and slope came in. I'll go ahead and reopen my file. And let's get to making a corridor. I've been talking a lot here. And let's see how these codes can come into play for our corridor. So I've got my existing surface underneath here. I guess I could change that to a existing surface style. Create a corridor. And now we can see that we've got this set up. I'm going to real quick go through and make sure my targets are looking good. e.g. surface target. Okay. But now, you know, I can see all these frequency lines and they're kind of cluttering up my drawing. I don't really want to do that. Maybe I'll change my code set to one with a corridor plotting style. So what this is going to do is this is going to redefine how things are set up. And I've been talking, I realize now, for some time about codes. Well, simply put, a code is how this information is being tracked through the software. So all subassemblies, all corridors, cross sections, the rest of that function off of codes. You've got points. When you connect 2 points, you get a link. When you have a closed set of links, you then have the opportunity to define a shape. So right now, when I said before for that link, width, and slope, hey, don't use the code topsoil, use the code sod. If I reattach that, I can now see that that shape code I defined of sod has been added into my drawing. And that is showing up properly now with my shapes that I've defined. So the other reason why I kind of want to bring this up is because I want to talk about how we can trigger labels and other things by using our code set. And so with this design, I've got my kind of my roadway, curb, sidewalk, boulevards, all that kind of stuff. But I need to get out to my right-of-way line, which is out here. And I want to make sure that that's being labeled in my cross-section. Well, I don't want that section in there. I want to go ahead and get my sample line and make sure I'm getting the right number of sources. So I'm going to sample my Main Street corridor. And my existing surface. I'm also going to add in this right-of-way corridor to my stuff as well. And what this is going to do is I'll chop up my viewport here. It's going to start displaying this stuff in my section because I've sampled those, but it's not looking quite right. I've got all this white color and none of it's really working. So what I need to do is I need to go and make sure that this is being reported properly with the correct code set. So in this, sorry, not the section view, the section view group, I need to make sure that my corridor for Main Street is using the code set that I want for my cross-section. Once I'm using my cross-section code set, now I've got the outline of all of my things, but I've also got stuff like labels being generated for me automatically. And I'm also going to switch out this curb for my custom TBC code. I'm going to replace that one, attach up there, replace this one, attach up there. And when I do that, my section is going to look weird because I'm no longer going to be triggering based off of that code. When I update my group layout, when I rebuild my corridor, because I deleted one of those surface targets, it's given me those surface warnings, but now my top back of curb codes went away, or my labels went away in here. So what I need to do is I need to kind of make some settings, make some modifications to my code set so that my code set is representative of my design. When I go into my cross-section code set, I can go find a point, which is where I was labeling that curb before. And I don't want this to be called back curb. That's out of the box, and I am special, gosh darn it. I want my curb code to be TBC. When I change that code from TBC, anytime my particular Civil 3D object is looking for codes and it finds a TBC, it's going to be generating this label that says, hey, give me my offset and an elevation at that point. And that's another style that you can kind of go through and configure. But when I do that, my corridor just went through a rebuild. And now that it found this code for TBC, it's triggering that label again. The other thing that I want to do is I want to use codes to give me a right-of-way label. And to do this, I'm going to use kind of an additional corridor. And I'm going to take my link width and slope. I'm going to give a point code for my outside top as ROW. Everything else, I'm going to give the code no plot. Because I don't want anything to happen when it does that. And now if I were to go back and look again at my cross-section code set, I've already defined this point code of no plot. Or rather, I haven't, so I need to add a code. So just go into your code set, add the code. It's going to be style, no markers. Always comes in under under new code. So that can be a little frustrating sometimes when I want a 0 thickness for those as well. And now, with these, I've already got this corridor built, so I was basically just redefining the corridor. So if I go through, I'll make sure we can verify our targets. What we're targeting is we're looking for that right-of-way alignment on the left side and on the right side. And I want my existing surface as part of that. And when I target my existing surface at that width with these subassemblies and all those codes in place, now I'm also going to get a custom label generating in my cross-section whenever I see that code. And the reason why I'm using a second corridor is because I don't necessarily want to be tied directly to that beginning one. And with this, I can see I'm inside on my surface target, inside the right-of-way on the left side, but now I'm outside of my right-of-way for the right side of my road, and I need to go back and I need to reconfigure my design. So with that, kind of sums up where I wanted to go today. I wanted to talk about how the subassemblies in this pack are flexible. They're user-friendly. I can come in here and I can quickly and easily figure out what it is I'm trying to modify. I can find out what codes I'm using, what my thicknesses are, and a lot of these codes are directly editable right inside Civil 3D. If I wanted to get fancy, I could go into Subassembly Composer, and I can either change the defaults for how some of these work, or I can copy them over and make brand new ones that are going to have those defaults predefined for me, and just go forward and continue to increase the flexibility of my design. And so just the other last thing too, the codes are really where it comes back to, and it's about the plan, it's about the section display, it's about your editing versus your printing and your plot control. All of that stuff ties back to the code set. And when you have these custom codes, the sky is the limit with what you can get done for your plan production through the corridor. Thank you everybody for watching. And I'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions. So please type your questions into the chat window, or if you would like to unmute yourself, either on your phone or your computer and through the meeting, I'll go ahead and allow that too. I'm not going to turn everybody on, but I want to go ahead and open up some time for questions. All right, so Jeremy Brown wanted to know, is the CPP software an extra cost or is it already included? The CPP is free. Everyone can check it out. All you got to do, and Henry, this is to your question as well, head over to ctcsoftware.com, and then under the products menu ribbon, you'll find the Corridor Productivity Pack. Just run in over here to go to the download for free button, and all you got to do is fill out some information. This next page will tell you where you can download them. What you'll get is a zip file. Simply extract that zip file, and what's left in there, you'll see these 3 subfolders: Imperial, Metric, whatever else, and then inside there will be these PKT files. From within Civil 3D, Sean, thank you. I'll go ahead and I'll post this in the chat publicly, but the hard link for that You can also download it from the ATG website. You don't just have to go to the CTC website. That's atgusa.com, CTC products, and then the corridor productivity pack. So you can download it here as well. But with those PKT files, all you do is on your tool palette, right-click on any of your palette tabs and import subassemblies. From here, you can grab as many as you need, and it'll bring those all in with a single command with a single click. Stephen Boyd wanted to know, how does my corridor know to match my existing ground at the right-of-way? So I did two things with this, Steve. First up is I created a whole separate corridor. I called it whatever right-of-way. So it's still using that same baseline as my main corridor is, but it's just defined with a link, width, and slope subassembly. Since I'm using a link, width, and slope, I need to define both a vertical and a horizontal target. So if I go to edit my targets and come in here, I'll see that horizontally, I've got my left and right side as those main street offset alignments at my right-of-way distance. And then for my vertical target, I've got the existing surface profile is what I'm going out and I'm finding. So with all of that targeting in place, when I come over here, that landing position is going to find my existing surface at the right-of-way width every time. Does that make sense? And then, so the point with that is it's not just about having a right-of-way code at that exact spot. It's about being able to say, whatever I want to label in my cross-section, I can label. So if I were to go into that code set, and I could create a new code, but in this case, I'm just going to edit the code that is currently set up for right-of-way. We'll call this my code. Wet for wetland. All I do is I make sure that that code is being found in my code set. And I make sure that my subassembly is reporting that code. And as soon, pay attention to right here on my screen, as soon as my corridor rebuilds, that code is going to populate. And now technically I have that specific label is hard-coded to display the verbiage of right-of-way. So you'd also have to make sure that your label is set up to be either flexible enough or have a specific one. Do the actual point code as well, and that would make it the most flexible. Now it's going to say wetland, so I can change that everywhere else. So still getting some more questions on this whole corridor to target your other features kind of outside of your primary. So if you don't target the surface vertically, you're just going to get whatever happens as part of your assembly. So your assembly is your typical cross section. And with this, you get to specify parameters like width, slope, depth, the rest of that stuff. So if I were to have removed the vertical target from there, I'll just go ahead and do that now. If I remove the vertical target, and I rebuild that corridor, and I'll just change this. But we can see that my landing point for these labels is at the bottom of that dashed line. So now it's hiding out down below. And technically, that doesn't, it depends on how you set your label up. We know that vertically or horizontally, we're this far away. And after I cross my right-of-way line and my existing surface, I know that I'm there. So it depends on what you need the landing location for, but the best way to make sure that it happens is to be specific about targeting that surface vertically as well. And as the person who taught me Civil 3D explained early on in our lessons, there's a million ways to draft a cat. When you get to corridors, there's a million ways to do something. There are a variety of different ways you can get these labels to trigger and set up inside your cross sections. I was just trying to illustrate one of them today. Robert, I see your question here about the ability to download. Why don't you send, is anybody else noticing that if you were to go to either the ATG website or the CTC website? Robert, are you doing that from the CTC or the ATG website? Which one? All right, so one thing that could be happening is when you register, you may actually have to go through the system to get, so you'll go through, it's checking for your email, basically. And then, or through the ATG page, it's probably gonna be checking for your email, and then it will auto send you back out that download link. But I have been going through, I do some consulting with other clients and on their systems. I just go to the CTC link. And once you go through this page and confirm that you are not in fact a robot, you go to that download button. And then clicking on this link for the CPP download will work, and that'll be instantaneous. So I'm gonna click that, and then it's just gonna go ahead and ask me either where I want it to download, or it'll go through and manually, or it'll automatically download that to your default location. So the CTC website is apparently working instantaneously right now. If the ATG website isn't working, I would then believe that it is a function of just going through the system. Yeah, so this, on the ATG website, this is basically a request for information. So if you want to get more info and have someone reach out to you directly, you would use the ATG page at this point in time. And if you just wanted to go right to the downloading, hop on over to the CTC website to download today and go ahead and get these installed. See, I'm seeing a number of reports through the channel that the CTC website is downloading instantly. So that's not just me there. Oh, hey, you know what? That's just getting some chat here. No worries. Everything is going well. And I'm gonna stick around here for a few more minutes, folks. I don't have anywhere to be until 1 o'clock, so I do still have a few more minutes if anyone else is having some questions about what I did today or how to get these to work a little bit better. Definitely hang out as long as people need me for the next 10 minutes or so. Otherwise, if the questions dry up or people start to flood out, I can go ahead and end the presentation. No problem, Henry. Thank you for your time and attention today. Have a great day. So this video will be posted to the ATG Vimeo page. It's where we get all of our webcasts up after they get processed by our marketing team. So it's vimeo.com/Alpha Tango Golf Uniform Sierra Alpha, or Applied Technology Group, United States of America. So you'll see it up here in the list coming through, as well as any of the other webinars that we've done on ATG stuff or on Civil Express tools from CTC software. Multidiscipline firms, this is where you can also go to find the Revit webinars as well. So just like CTC has this whole host of project-based tools, our project suite and our manager suite, so too do we have various packs of tools available to help users out on the Revit side of things as well. And so basically anytime you see, and when you're going through, I wanted to mention, someone else is asking, hey, is this corridor productivity pack, is this free? Anytime you see on the CTC website or inside the software, we've kind of got a light color designation and a dark color designation. So for the project suite for users, that color scheme is green. Any of these dark green tools, these are the paid tools. So you have to have an active subscription with CTC. Any of these light green tools are free tools. So everyone can download these, use them past the point of the trial, or if you become a customer of CTC and decide to end that relationship, all of these light green tools are free for everyone forever. The dark green ones are the ones that are the paid tools that you would need to either have access to within the trial or come back to with the subscription. So the CPP, that's that light green color. It's going to be free. It's going to be free from here on out. And then for the manager suite, these are tools that are a little bit less project related and a little bit more how am I going to go through the process of rebuilding my template, and it's not going to take me 2 weeks, and I'm not going to pull my hair out doing those things one at a time. Those are all blue. So we've got the dark blue tools, and then the light blue tools are the ones that are those free tools that anyone can use, download today, use forever. So if you've ever been thinking about how frustrating it is to build the line type, go ahead and download the project suite and you can use the line type manager. It's a really great way to get a lot of line types built in AutoCAD really quickly. And it's an intuitive interface that helps make sure that you can see exactly what it is that you're doing. So with that on, I've got it installed. I'm going to go ahead and run it right now. It will scan your drawing for all of the different line types in the drawing. It'll also look for your firm's LIN file. And you could go through and simply start saying, all right, I want a line, I want a dot, I want a text bit. That's going to be a character. Add in a little Y offset. Play with the relative order of these things. So we can see I've got a preview down here. It's going to show me different drawing scales. Definitely recommend everybody check this out. It's a free tool. It's going to help you build those line types real quick, real fun, real easy. All right, got a question from Steve again. So how do we do varying ditch slopes versus varying side slopes? You would do that by building multiple subassemblies with this link, width, and slope here. So every link, width, and slope subassembly gives you the opportunity on your outside to choose a horizontal and a vertical target. So if I wanted if I wanted a 1 foot deep, 3 foot wide front slope, or inside on my design, I could do that for a little bit. And then I could add in another one of these. And maybe this will just be, we'll do a trapezoidal ditch, so we'll do 3 to 1 side slope, but it's gonna still keep going down at a little bit at that 2%. We'll say maybe another 3 feet over. And then we'll do another one of these at a positive 33% for another 3 feet up. And then you can have that. You can play with this. You can make these as wide or as shallow as you want. If you have an alignment or profile or feature line that you want any one of these outside point codes to track with for your drawing in a little bit, you can definitely use targeting to achieve that. But at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that these are Lego blocks, if you want to think about it that way, or they're the tiny little Lincoln logs that allow us to start putting together our design. And as many pieces of these that we choose to use is the complexity that we can achieve with our design. So there's obviously some best practices and some do's and don'ts and nuances of how the corridor toolset works, but you can have this kind of work however you want. You can have varying ditch side slopes by putting them in that way. So I'll do this one instead of that. We'll go with that. We'll get in another 3-footer here at that 33%. And maybe instead of, so if we're going to do this really, really deep spot here, maybe this is concrete. This isn't topsoil. There, to make it look nice, I'll use the sidewalk code instead of the concrete code. And now magically, our design is going to compute these quantities instead of being a grass material. It's going to be that concrete material or that sidewalk material because I'm using the codes. Does that make sense, Steve? Fantastic. We'll just make that look all nice and tidy. Now I've got a multi-material ditch. So, all right, folks, I want to thank everybody for sticking around an extra 20 minutes after the webinar was supposed to end. I really appreciate all of your time, all of your attention, all of your questions. If you need to get a hold of me, you can reach me at kgroves@atgusa.com. Otherwise, definitely give us a call on our main line, or use the contact form on the ATG website to get a hold of us. We'll put you in touch with some of our sales reps if you have any other questions about the paid Express tools, anything along the lines of training, support, all the rest of that stuff. Give us a call. We are here to help you. So with that, have a great rest of your Thursday, everyone. And I know 4-day work week for most of us, so finish strong. And in about 8 or about 12 more business hours, it'll be the weekend. Have a great day, everyone.